Welcome to the darkest end of the dark romanticism spectrum. This week, time travelers, you will be immersed in the world of Gothic literature. You know that romanticism shines a light on nature, emotion, imagination, and individualism. And you've learned how dark romanticism explores the shadowy side of those topics, like nature's indifference, the burden of negative emotions, the more troubling aspects of imagination, and a kind of individualism that can actually lead to harm. Well, Gothic literature takes the shadows to an extreme. Nature, it's dark, it's scary, and sometimes it's haunted by supernatural forces. Imagination and individualism. Authors of Gothic literature explored the frazzled fringes of the human psyche with visions, omens, and madness. And emotions, oh my! Not only do the characters experience emotions like fear, loneliness, grief, and, well, terror, the authors attempt to make readers experience those emotions as well. Actually, authors of Gothic works shook the literary world by insisting that literature could exist for literature's sake. It didn't have to teach a lesson or promote moral principles. Literature could stand alone as an aesthetic creation, existing for no other purpose than to please and, well, thrill the reader. In this video, you'll gain an understanding of the early beginnings of Gothic literature in Europe, learn about the life and works of the American author, often identified as the father of Gothic literature, and prepare yourself for the week's readings and activities, including a little refresher on tone, mood, and poetic devices. Journey with me to the world of Gothic literature. Gothic literature is an extreme form of dark romanticism that is often described as macabre, which is a word that means disturbing or horrifying. Plots usually involve madness or death, characters are filled with a sense of fear or dread, and the scenery is dark and gloomy. Sometimes there's even a supernatural force involved. The name Gothic is actually derived from Gothic architecture in medieval Europe. You know, like those medieval castles with all the towers, spires, and arches. Of course, no medieval castle would be complete without some hideous gargoyles, and some spiky wrought iron gates, and most likely a few hidden passages. Settings in Gothic tales usually involve castles or mansions, and the natural setting is rather bleak. You know, darkness, fog, full moon. An English author named Horace Walpole wrote the first Gothic novel back in 1764. It was called The Castle of Otranto. The story was set in a medieval castle, and it starts off with a guy getting crushed to death by a giant helmet, which is actually part of an ancient prophecy. Another European author of Gothic literature was Mary Shelley, who published the novel Frankenstein in 1818. The story is told that she wrote this novel after she was challenged by Lord Byron to see who could write the scariest story, and it looks like she won that contest. Not only did she create a scary story with all the hallmarks of Gothic literature, but she integrated it with science to create the first sci-fi novel. In this course, we're focusing on American literature, so our attention this week is going to be on the man often called the father of Gothic literature, because even though some European authors paved the way for this genre, this American author perfected it and made it his own. And his name is Edgar Allan Poe. Edgar Allan Poe was born in Boston, Massachusetts in 1809. Abandoned by his father, Poe lived with his mother, actress Eliza Poe. Eliza became ill, most likely with tuberculosis, and died in 1811. Her 3 small children were split up to be raised in different homes. Young Edgar was sent to Richmond, Virginia, to be raised with John Allan and his wife Frances. He received a prestigious education in England, but was later dismissed from the University of Virginia for gambling debts. In 1835, Poe married Virginia Clem, a younger cousin. Like Poe's mother, Virginia succumbed to tuberculosis and died in 1847. Poe's life was fraught with the loss of loved ones, especially the women in his life, and his personal context became a stronger influence on his work than the events going on in the greater historical context. Poe expressed his grief in poems like Lenore, a haunting exploration of loss and mourning, and Annabel Lee, which you'll read this week, a narrative poem seeking to explain the loss of a highly idealized love interest. Poe's most famous poem, The Raven, emphasizes the unrelenting nature of the thoughts and feelings associated with grief. In addition to a wealth of poetry, Poe also wrote a lot of short stories. One of his stories, The Murders in the Rue Morgue, details an investigation into a gruesome murder, literally creating the detective story genre that we've come to know and love. The Fall of the House of Usher, a story you'll read this week, is the quintessential Gothic tale. There's a dark mansion, some madness, isolation, and supernatural elements. An unnamed narrator summoned to the house of an old acquaintance relays the story. Everything about this tale is eerie and mysterious, and it's not just because of the setting, characters, and plot. It has a lot to do with the narrator's tone. Tone is the attitude expressed by an author or narrator, and it's created by word choice and diction, or the ways in which those words are arranged to create a particular voice or style. Authors can create a positive tone, for example, optimistic, joyful, or inspiring, a neutral tone, like one that's informative, authoritative, or casual, or a negative tone, which can be anything from anxious to irritated to infuriated. Readers develop a mood based on the way that the author's or narrator's tone makes them feel. And the reader's mood might match the tone, or it could be different. For example, an inspiring tone might make a reader feel inspired, but a threatening tone might put the reader in a fearful mood. However, no matter what the tone and mood may be, it's the author who creates the tone, sometimes through the voice of a narrator, and it's the reader who receives a mood as an effect of that tone. And Edgar Allan Poe was a master of tone. You'll also notice this week that Poe uses a lot of poetic devices. In his poetry, he employs rhythm and rhyme to an even greater extent than the fireside poets. He also incorporates other devices like the repetition of words and phrases, as well as the repetition of sounds like in consonants and assonants. He uses onomatopoeia, or words created to imitate sounds. He employs those tried and true tools of imagery, a metaphor, simile, and personification. You've learned all about these devices before, but don't worry, you'll get a quick refresher in this lesson. Your agenda for the week includes daily PDF readings and activities, daily online practice, some refresh on your writing practice, reflection questions, and a writing assignment that asks you to critique Poe's work. Alright, time travelers, the time has come for your journey into the world of Gothic literature and the work of its master, Edgar Allan Poe. Enjoy the ride.